Hello and welcome to yet another interactive session with Humanizing Lives. Welcoming you all, I'm Namita, and with me today is Dr. Meenakshi Ahuja. Dr. Meenakshi Ahuja is Director OBS and Gynae in La Femme, New Delhi, and she's also the President Delhi Gynecologist Forum. I welcome you today here with us, Dr. Ahuja. Audible, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Am I audible to you?
Yeah, you're audible. I think the connection is a little bad because we kept on having some breakage in between, but I think I'm good now.
Okay, ma'am. So I welcome you aboard, and I welcome the rest of our guests with us as well. Now, sorry, to begin with, ma'am, we will keep our entire discussion centered around women health in general, but we are going to be talking about some of the problems that are specifically faced by women and women alone. So let's just start quickly with our discussion. My first question to you is, how do you think menstrual cramps affect a woman's lifestyle? Like, we talk about period too much and we talk about everything else, but when it comes to cramps, I don't think it has received as much attention medically as well as otherwise.
I agree with you. You know, we have this menstrual hygiene day coming up next week. I think we should have a menstrual cramps day because I think all the girls are more troubled with their cramps and we are worried about the hygiene in all honesty. So the cramps are something which are usually, you know, shoved under the carpet. And it's not something which should be taken lightly because it's the starting of the trauma mentally also to any girl in her life about her periods. And that kind of puts a negativity in their life because of their periods. And that is why those cramps, if dealt with at the first step itself, it makes them feel more that it's a physiological thing. It's a part of their lives and periods are something extremely normal. And that's why I personally feel that rather than just saying that cramps are normal and just live with them, and some people have more, some people have less, some people have vomiting and pain, which will start from the time they start their periods at Meenakshi and go on till the time they even, you know, kind of finish their periods. I don't think it's a great idea to live your life like this. That's number one. So there are solutions available, and that is why, and we must take the cramps a little more seriously rather than just think that womanhood is meant to suffer. And if you're suffering during your periods for a couple of days or for a week, it's all right. I think it's a wrong way to go because it negates your whole concept of being a woman.
True. That brings me to another interesting aspect attached to the whole period question that all of us periodically go through. But before we get on to that, I want to tell our viewers that yes, you can ask questions. We will be taking your questions on. Ma'am, I wanted to ask, because cramps are still physical and you can still kind of pinpoint the pain and tell your near ones, dear ones, your close friends that you're going through this physical discomfort. But how about PMSing? I mean, what is the saga around PMSing and how real is it? I mean, are the girls really throwing tantrums around it like we have beat them off, or is it real? Like it's a real physio problem?
So it is a real thing. That's number one. And even though husbands, boyfriends, kids, family, everyone make a joke of it, it's something very real. And it's not that someone who's never had PMS, because I have women who come at 40 saying, or 38, saying, I've never had PMS. Why am I having it now? Do you think it's that? Do you think it's something else? Do you think I'm reaching menopause? It can actually start at any point of your menstrual life. It's not that if you had it right in the beginning, it'll happen all your life, or it can't start at any point in the middle. It's a very real thing, and it happens because of the progesterone hormone in the second half of your cycle, which actually causes water retention in your body. And because the water retention is there on your breast, you may feel that your breasts get heavier. It may be on your body under the skin, and that's why you feel your clothes getting tighter. It's there on your abdomen, and that is why your intestines get bloated up. You feel gassy and full and, bloated. And because it happens in the frontal lobe of the brain, the water retention, that's where it acts on your mood and actually may make you depressive or irritable or even with suicidal tendencies. So yeah, it is
Yes.
something which should be recognized and should be dealt with, because it can come to something very worse, can work on your own mental health and also affect your relationship with your close ones.
Wow,
And
Doc,
also, I
that
guess,
was
your
interesting.
performance at work.
You will have to repeat that. You were not very clear there. Yes. I would want you to repeat that point, doctor, that you mentioned in the end.
Yeah, so what I was saying was that I think PMS should be recognized, empathetically dealt with as soon as possible, because otherwise, if it remains untreated, not only does it affect your own mental health, it also affects your relationship with your near and dear ones, your peers, your colleagues, at work and at home. And that's why it needs to be recognized. It can even lead to suicidal tendencies. So please recognize it and get it treated as soon as possible.
Oh, so yeah, I mean, that is supremely interesting a point. Like when I am going through my PMSing, I literally declare out there, like, I'm asking for it, so you better stay away from me. But suicidal is pretty serious, and I think we need to give it as much importance as well. There is a question coming from somebody called Kulvinder Kaur. This viewer has to mention that she's gotten her period on 21st of April. And since then, she hasn't had any, though she's having some kind of white discharge. So, it is so heavy that she kind of has to use sanitary towel for it. Doctor, we are dealing with problems that are real and yet not addressed directly, like this one. Going to a gynae has not been part of major chunk of the middle and lower middle classes, I think. So how do you deal with patients who are absolutely ignorant about it? What do you tell them to do?
So about this delayed periods, or because for PMS, what are you asking about specifically? The same question, or
This particular
just
viewer
generally
has
reaching
a
out to help?
question. Sorry, this particular viewer has a watery discharge, but my question is larger than that. My question is the fact that we are not easy about visiting a gynae. It's always a shush matter.
So normally what I've started saying is that your gynecologist should be able to discuss it with your gynecologist, and that is why a routine checkup once a year is anyway mandated for your breast examination, for your pap smear and otherwise. But even, say now we have girls who come in at the debut of their sexual life, that, they want to understand how things go, because it's obviously more counseling. So I've been in practice. This is not 25 years back. But yes, I need the girls to come over to the clinic to ask their questions. When they start their periods, they may want them to come in, or probably when they're getting their cervical cancer vaccinations, the girls like to ask some questions. And because of PCO, of course, we see a lot of young girls. So the taboo has actually, I would say that in the last 25 years, there's definitely a significant difference. And I agree with you that it's still not percolated to the lower or the lower middle class. But I'm sure things will change. We have to be positive. It has to start somewhere. And now that people are getting more free and women want to talk about their problems, how you have to see is that it's actually something which is sort of generational. And now that things are coming out and people want to discuss it, people are more concerned about their health, media and everything else. We have more discussions over personal health. It's not a taboo to talk about your problems anymore. 25 years, probably if someone had acne or more facial hair, it was acceptable that, it runs in the family. But now a 16-year-old will not accept it, also because there is bullying in schools, unfortunately. But yeah, she won't accept it, and she will see, and she would think that it's a right to go and see a doctor for it, because it can be corrected.
Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautifully put. But as far as we've come with respect to the period being addressed, there's one particular aspect of women health which is, I don't think even now addressed properly in the households, which is the menopause. Doctor, because you would have dealt with patients' anxieties, curiosities, and the physical issues as well. Uh, we are facing a huge network problem today, so I would request our viewers to please be a little patient with us. The doctor will, yes, answer all your questions as well, so please keep coming up with your questions. We will go on with the interview as as the discussion moves on, but we are waiting for the doctor to come online. Maybe in a moment she'll be with us.
I'm here. Yeah. So
Okay,
I think we were talking about menopausal problems,
yes,
and you were
yes.
saying that menopause
So, yes,
also more empathetic about it. Women are now career women, and by the time they're 45 to 55, it's the professionals and housewives. Now they feel that it is important to deal with it, to deal with what are the problems that they face at menopause. What the family being more empathetic towards their psychological issues, also about their sex life, how it's going to change the fears about their body image. So it is very important. I think menopause is now going to become a very important thing, and I think I will be doing more talks now in the future about menopause, because I think we really that's a big segment of our society.
yeah. So mood swings we've all known about with relationship to menopause. I think as teenagers we've been one mean kids, at least. I mean, I can remember some of us around here who, every time the mother would go on a scolding trip, we would say, "अच्छा आपको ना रहने दो, menopause वो हो रहा है, phase चल रहा होगा आपका." So we've
See,
all been mean.
so no, but you have to understand what happens is that there are a lot of women who give up their careers, or there's a lot one gives up when she becomes a mother, right?
Yes.
And you always feel that it's a very happy sacrifice a woman has done when she's a mother. But yeah, at the end of the day, there is something she's given up. Some women have given up their careers, some people have given up their personal life if they're working. And what happens is that by this time, the kids are grown up enough. They would move on to wherever they are in life. And unfortunately, the husbands are also now used to not, because women give their children definitely much more attention than they give their husbands. You have to be clear on that. And so the husbands also get used to being busy in their own work. And suddenly the woman feels that her whole life, whatever the last 20 years that she's lived for her children, and now have their own lives. So there seems to be that emptiness in herself. So you have to understand, the culmination of 20 years of hard work is zero.
Yeah.
So somewhere that emptiness is going to come in. On top of that, your hormones are like fluctuating. You're not where you want to be yourself also. Right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if
Yeah.
you don't get support at home, where else will you get support from?
True. I think, doctor, I don't know whether you would agree with me or not, but it sounds like a woman's life is a topsy-turvy ride all through, from starting from hormonal causes for mood swings in our teens to, having one during our pregnancies to one in menopause as well. God must be a man for sure. That brings me to the next question is pregnancy and mood swings. Pregnancy and mood swings. You'll have to tell me here whether it also has something to do with the actual physical discomfort that a woman goes through and the kind of discomfort she goes through. I want you to elaborate on that as well. And how is that related to, along with hormones, her mental health and stability?
Okay, so let me start with the time that a woman realizes that she's pregnant. She doesn't know whether she has to be happy or anxious or scared, because at that time only she's worried about how she's going to manage the pregnancy, how the labor, and another, physical being in her life. So that itself is a very big fear. Then what happens is your hormones start kicking in. I mean, obviously, nausea is a very big thing. And nausea will not let you eat anything. When you look at food, you will feel nauseous, but you are hungry. You want to eat something. So I will tell husbands that please understand your wives, because what happens is she might demand for something, you'll go and get it. And by the time you get it, she'll say, I don't want to eat it. But that's not her fault. It's a nausea issue. It's a pregnancy craving issue. She can't help it. You know, she can be very, very unreasonable. But no woman wants to be that unreasonable also and find that her husband is irritated with her at that point of time. So it becomes a catch-22 situation, so the woman feels even worse. So that's there. Now there are women who won't have nausea. They are worried, why don't they have nausea? You know, they are scared, is the pregnancy going on fine because they don't have nausea? So it's such a small thing, but it makes such a big difference. So if you're nausea, you're troubled. If you don't have nausea, you're troubled. You will start feeling that little bloating and stretching in your pelvis. And everyone starts treating you in a strange fashion, you know. Like even as doctors, we'll say, just take it easy, don't do something. So whatever activity you were saying, going to the gym or something, we'll stop that because we want you to exercise or whatever. But when you come back home, people will tell you, don't bend, don't take stairs, don't do this, don't do that, don't do, you know, everything is don't do, don't do, don't do. So that suddenly you feel that, you know, you are in a prison, and suddenly there are 10 people who don't want you to live your life. On top of that, your skin may kind of break out because of the hormonal changes. Your hair may go bad. You're a young girl. All these things make a difference to you, you know, and God forbid if there's little spotting or something and you're put on bed rest. It's very difficult to lie in bed without any fever or any illness at a young age. At any age, I guess. So that also adds up to your anxieties and fears and all, you know, that thing. So it's a very, and you're scared also that everything will go fine or not. So 12 weeks, though, it is a very bad phase. I think the second trimester goes on pretty well because the nausea gets okay. The pregnancy is not big enough to come in the way of things. It's not small enough to be, you know, for you to be scared of. You realize that the baby is moving well after 20 weeks and all. You realize the pregnancy is going well. After 30 weeks, there's another story. Is the baby growing well or not? You're worried that when are you going to go into labor? People start giving you stories about going into labor in the 7th month and 8th month. Don't do this, don't do that. Again, that whole story starts. Your doctor's worried that your baby may be growing well or not. So the anxieties again start kicking in. And near the 36th week, normal hoga tumhara, cesarean hoga, kya hoga, kaise hoga, how will you manage? It's like really a roller coaster ride. So at the end of the day, when all of us say a pregnancy is a normal thing, at least let that poor girl live in peace, na? That's the first thing. You know, she gets her advice from the doctor. There's so much available on internet, which she's reading anyway. And there are books and there are guidance, and you know, you now have counselors, there are people who are teaching you Lamaze classes, there are people who are teaching you exercises in pregnancy and all. On top of that, everyone who starts discussing their experiences, you know, patients will come and tell me, I think I should have a cesarean because my friends think that cesarean is better. I said, then probably your friends who've had normal delivery think their normal delivery is better. So what I mean is that all of this, that it's such a difficult time. We all need to be supportive, see what she wants, you know, and just help her in the path that she wants to take, as long as she's safe and the baby is safe. That's the way we should all be looking at it.
True, true. So I would like to just maybe paraphrase what...
I still haven't started about the postpartum period. I'm still talking about the pregnancy.
Sorry, we'll come to that as well. Definitely. I mean, that is a very, very important aspect. So, yeah, so like I was saying, I'll just kind of brief what ma'am just said. The families need to ease out. The friends need to ease out. Let the poor girl grow through her experience, and there is no standard in any pregnancy. They're all special and unique in their own way. Am I correct, doctor? That's what you meant to say.
Thank you, Namita. Thank you.
Moving on, hygiene. I wanted to talk about hygiene. When it comes to women, so Humanizing Lives went to this taluka in Maharashtra to distribute sanitary napkins, and was surprised to find that a lot of husbands act as a barrier in, you know, because it's an excessive expense, and they don't want to. How important is hygiene for women vis-a-vis the men?
So, as far as menstrual hygiene is concerned, I think the first thing I would like to say is thank you, Akshay Kumar, for bringing it up. So, that's the first thing. I think all of us and in all homes, because of Padman, and thank you, Akshay Kumar, people talk about it before every movie. We have the trailer where he's telling this man who's outside the dispensary that he should not, it costs less than what he's smoking away in his cigarette, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's very, very important that we should be able to talk about it. And in schools now, I think the time has come that you don't talk about menstrual hygiene just to that little group of girls in the class. I think it's high time it's brought up as an open topic in front of the boys also, and everyone talks about it because it's an awareness, like you said, that if it's the husband who's the barrier, he needs to be educated about it, right? The girls
Yes.
understand that they need it, but who educates the husband that the girls need it, right? So it has to be at that stage that I remember that when my daughter was, say, about 18-year-old and my son was, say, about 14, he would go to the market if he's going and getting stuff. He would not hesitate to buy sanitary pads for his sister. So that awareness has to be in there first. You understand? That's the way it goes. So you have to break those barriers stepwise. We can't do it immediately, but yeah, like I said, we start at small places, and menstrual hygiene is extremely important because women would otherwise have pelvic infections because of that, which would affect their fertility, their body, their pains and aches, and all these dirty discharges and aches and pains that the women have, pelvic pains, that's all related to infection at the end of the day. So menstrual hygiene is important, and otherwise also the body hygiene is important. So whether you use water, whether you're using hygiene products, it's all okay. But at least keep the area clean and dry. That's the important thing.
Oh, beautiful. Now, because I brought you up to this hygiene question, we are moving on to the very aspect you could not discuss in the last question. My apologies for the same. Postpartum, period, and then subsequently also in certain cases pregnancy. How important is hygiene, mental health with respect to this postpartum situation? I mean, how difficult is it for a woman?
Yeah. So, I've worked in the government hospital for 6 years, and for the last 25 years, I'm in a relatively posher and now a very posh setup. But let me tell you, mental health is something, postpartum depression is something which is an issue which does not see class, does not see financial status, does not see education. It doesn't see whether you're alone at home or you have a whole family in your head. So it is absolutely brutal. Probably something like we say with Corona, that it doesn't spare anyone and you just have to be careful, watch out and keep yourself safe. It's probably something like that. So postpartum depression can happen because of many reasons. You see, the first is again that we are going to put that girl in a room for 40 days. Okay. She has a baby she's supposed to feel happy about, but she has to manage the baby. The baby is trying to learn how to breastfeed. You've never breastfed before, and that baby has also never, been on a breast before. So it's a learning phase. It is going to take 2 to 3 weeks. As a doctor, I understand that, but it's not necessary. The family gets anxious. I always explain to the girls also that what their families are saying is out of concern and anxiety for both of them. And so you should always see where it's coming from. That unfortunately, when everyone is trying to tell that हमें तो कोई problem नहीं होती थी, हमें तो बहुत दूध आता था, हमें तो कोई issue नहीं. The minute the baby starts crying, everyone at home will start saying, बच्चा क्यों रो रहा है, भूखा होगा. So that poor kid will say, अभी तो मैंने दूध पिला था, पूरा नहीं आ रहा होगा, तुमने ये खाया होगा इसलिए गैस हो रही होगी. So suddenly, the 9 months that you have been kind of put on a revert pedestal, and everyone in your family looks after you and takes care of you. Because now you are sitting at home just feeding the baby and you have no outlet. Whatever everyone says just plays on your head. And suddenly you feel that you've become the vamp in the whole story. Because now wherever anything is going wrong, everyone's just playing the blame game. They're actually not. It's just out of concern, and it may be just a well-meaning statement. But that's how a woman would look at it, no? You have to understand in that poor girl's view that she just feels that everyone's just bombarding her. She can't go out. Acha, the funny thing is that the guys are going out to celebrate having that baby. She's gone
Yeah.
through the whole labor. She's having real pain in her stitches. Her breasts are sore. Her nipples are cut. She's not able to feed that baby. She's not getting sleep. And on top of that, she's being blamed for everything. I mean, it's a depressing enough situation for even the strongest person on earth, you know?
Yes,
So,
definitely.
and that motherhood bliss actually kicks in, I guess, later. We have to be supportive at that time. So people may not have support at home to help them. People at home may not be supportive enough. Also, when they are over supportive, that's also a problem. So, I wish there were classes for this,
Wow.
for
Yeah.
everyone to just understand that you have to give her space, wait for her to reach out for help. And when she's reaching out for help, please just help, and
Yeah.
just stop there.
So
Because,
definitely.
here we have a good family system and a support system. But the support system has to understand that that's exactly what they are. They are a support system. She's craving for that glass of wine or that packet of Maggie that she's not had for a long time. That's
Yeah.
the primary thing which is going on in her head. Like she feels that I'm just craving for this simple pleasure in my life. And here, एक चम्मच कुछ खा लिया तो तुमने ये गलत.
Huh. Yes, doctor. On that note, I just want to address one of our viewers who seems to be a little uneasy. I don't know whether it is Anjan ARK or Anjana ARK, but I really, really want to tell you, sir, this is precisely what we are dealing with. As much as men think that women become too much to handle, their hands are full and all of that, I think for once, when your mother-in-law and your wife is going through pregnancy and menopause, you kind of have to make them the center of your universe rather than your own comfort. The idea is to give support. That is what the doctor is trying to tell us here. But thank you so much for being so interactive on the chat box. Thank you so much. Moving on to the next question, doctor. So how has lifestyle choices brought in change in the physical health of young girls today?
There was
We are hearing more and more more and more cases of PCOD and PCOS and stuff.
No, that question broke off in the middle because of the connection.
Sure,
Can you
I'll
just go
repeat
again?
myself. I'll repeat myself. As you know, like you were so far elaborating on how as it is, a girl's life is full of challenges and health issues that she has to deal with at different stages of her life. And then how have the new age choices, lifestyle choices, affected a health of a young girl? Why are we hearing of more of PCOD and PCOS cases nowadays?
So, in all fairness, I must say that probably PCOD had an epidemic, say, till maybe about 3 years back, because that was a generation which was growing up when McDonald's, KFC, Pizza Hut, and all these things came into India, so as to say. I'm talking about India specifically. So the first thing that we have to understand is that India is the hub of PCOD because we are the home of metabolic diseases and diabetes, and that is why most of us would have a PCO element in our genetic system. Now that gets overt because of a poor lifestyle and wrong eating. And that is why most women would keep it under control with regular exercise and good eating. Now, what happened was that the food became bad, and then we had the generation of television and movies, and then videos, and then CDs, and then Netflix, and everything else. And that is why the activities became more restricted. Children were happier playing on their Xboxes and on the games rather than going out to play badminton. People would play even games on the screen rather than going out to play. And physical exercise, unfortunately, in India, in most places, I admit, in the urban areas, it becomes difficult. In a place like Delhi, the problem is that either there are dogs in the park or there are people. It's not safe for a young girl to be out in the evenings. So it's very difficult to find places where you can, and the weather's either it's too cold or too hot or raining. So it's very difficult to kind of be onto that long distance running and all unless you're passionate about it, right? So these problems are there, and then to add to it all the junk food which started happening, right? And the reward system that, we'll always tell our children when they were growing up, अच्छा अगर तुम अच्छे से पढ़ाई करोगे तो तुम्हें मैकडॉनल्ड्स ले जाओगे. I'm surprised why none of us ever said कि तुम अच्छे से पढ़ाई करोगे तो पालक पनीर खिलाएंगे. Because at the end of the day, we made them believe that having an ice cream or going to McDonald's or having a pizza was a reward. So that was the best thing which could happen to them. So at the end of the day, then we are to blame, right? We should have, taught the children that the reward was a better thing. And that's how that conditioning has to happen. And because of that, we see much more PCO now. Thankfully, now people are getting aware. And like I see the younger kids growing up, they are now back into that, because the mothers are now realizing, the younger moms are also realizing that exercise, regular physical activity, and good food habits, having less processed food. I have 4-year-olds who know what quinoa is. So I'm hoping that in the next 10 years, I see less PCOD.
Definitely.
Than I'm seeing today.
I would like to take on this another viewer here before I start my next question. 1804 Tech Chand Wellness. Sir, I just want you to, or the organization that you're messaging from on behalf of, I would just want you to know that as far as Stone Age is concerned, the civilization lasted longer, but that does not mean that we also had longer life expectancy. We are in the modern era trying to ensure a better mental and physical health, which can kind of elongate the life expectancy here. So that is what we are talking to doctor about. Please ask questions related to that. We'll be more than welcome. You'll be more than welcome on the forum, and so will be your questions. Moving on.
So I would like to point in here that Anjana Rajkumar has again come up with this about yoga. So I agree with you absolutely. Regular exercise with yoga, especially this time, when you're not supposed to go into the park, you're not supposed to be walking on the road or running on the road. Yoga is a fantastic alternative. It also calms the mind as well as the body, and the exercises can be done in a very short area and a very small area, and at any time during the day, as long as you're not full. So, for us, where gyms are closed, parks are closed, pools are closed, I think yoga is an extremely important thing that we should now be reaching out to, not only for physical health, but also for mental health.
Okay, doctor, bringing you back to PCOD and PCOS question that we were talking about. What I wanted to kind of understand here is that you are saying that the genetic code for PCOD or PCOS could be in any of us, and it is relatively more in us because of us being a civilization that kind of, okay, perfect.
Also in India, we are all on a carb-based diet. Now, you see, yes, the point is that we are not a protein-based diet. And carbs are what would always put you at a predisposition to diabetes and say PCOD. So the point is that carbs now, they recognize that sugar is worse than fat. So actually it's the sugars and the sugary foods which gets us in trouble.
I want our viewers to specially note the doctor's suggestions there. Please look into your lifestyle and cut down on your sugar. Do a lot of yoga. Anjana would like to agree with us as well. Moving on to the next question. How would you rate contraceptives, doctor, there? I would like to understand that in certain, ovarian conditions and symptoms, contraceptives are also prescribed, in my understanding. So they are seen as a boon in lot of ways, where they can, kind of control your life and, where is it going, your stage, and etc. Today, I want to take the discussion on a different note a little bit. How well aware are we about the dangers attached to contraceptives? Are there any, to start with?
So the first thing is that contraceptives are actually not as bad as we think they are. And in India, they are still very underused, because the problems with an unwanted pregnancy are 10 times more than contraceptive. That's the first thing we need to understand. The second thing is that when we are talking about contraceptives, we are talking about birth control pills, I assume. So I am not talking about things like I-pill or the morning after pill, because those can be extremely dangerous. We've seen a continuation of pregnancies, miscarriages, and even tubal pregnancies are topics happening with it. And that is why those are completely not recommended. Unless it's an emergency, it is actually an ECP or an emergency contraceptive pill. So if there's someone who needs an emergency contraceptive pill regularly, you might as well go on a better contraceptive. So the point is, Namita, that we have to understand that more and more young girls are sexually active today.
Yes.
So pills are given basically more for two reasons. One is for contraception and one, like you said, for PCO. As far as a patient of PCO is concerned, I would always advise that, look, we are starting on medication which includes birth control, includes exercise and includes diet. So you be very strict with all three of them. And once your PCO gets okay, which we hope will get okay in 3 to 6 months, exercise should remain a mainstay of your life. You can do a little cheating in your diet, but I would like you to get off the medication completely. So that's the first thing, that I don't want anyone to be taking birth control for PCOS all their life or maintaining their PCOS with birth control. They should be maintaining it with their lifestyle, because it is a lifestyle disease. That said, if you need contraception, please use contraception. If you are smart enough to have sex, be smart enough to stay protected. So that is a message I would like to give. At the same time, remember that birth control pills may be extremely safe, but they should be taken under medical supervision. And you must visit a doctor if you want to understand how to take them correctly. Because if you don't take them correctly, the problems may be much more than if you're not taking the birth control. The third thing which I would like to say with birth, I hope I'm not kind of eating your head, Namita.
No, no, ma'am.
Okay,
We
so
definitely need this. The girls out there definitely need this.
So
Yes.
the third thing which I would like to say is that please remember, birth control does not protect you against STIs, and having a disease like HIV or hepatitis B or hepatitis C is going to screw up your life much more than an unwanted pregnancy. So if you, I mean, you have to realize that that is also as big, if not a bigger danger than an unwanted pregnancy. So if you're taking birth control for preventing an unwanted pregnancy, then please be smart enough that if you're unmarried or you're not in a committed relationship, to use condoms. Because like I said, for me, STIs is a bigger fear for me to deal with as a doctor also than an unwanted pregnancy. In India, MTPs are completely legal. You can take recourse to these sort of things. But don't forget that just because that can be done, your STIs can be dealt with. There are certain diseases we still can't treat, and you will be tied up with, for the rest of your life with them. There's no way that they're going to get corrected. Yeah. So don't be under the false illusion that just because you're in a birth control pill, you're protecting it against everything. So please consult a doctor. Like I said, we are all there for you, and we are not there to judge you. We are there to help you out with your problems. So see a doctor before you decide what you really need and what's the best for you.
Yeah. Before you assume, to the girls out there from, I don't know, 16, 18 to 20 something, before you start assuming that the doctor is going to judge you, or the word is going to get out, get to the clinic, meet up with the doctor. You might have a very pleasant experience and a very informed one as well. That brings us to the elephant in the room. We know that the teenage today is increasingly experimental and very, very confident in their sexuality as such. You've already kind of elaborated enough about the STI and STDs, and so I want you to kind of talk to them for once through our forum and tell them that all the fear that they have and all the discomfort and self-conscious and nervousness that they have before walking into clinic is all made up in their head. If nothing, we've got Dr. Ahuja out there looking out for you.
Thank you so much, Namita. Definitely, I would like to also end up on that note that information and correct choices is the way you should lead your life. And you can make correct choices only if you have the complete and correct information. And so getting it from the right person is important, and not your moral science teacher. I believe even with my kids, once they turned 18, I always used to tell them from 16 to 18, what I have to tell you, I can tell you now. Once you turn 18, it's your choices. And as a parent, you know, I can only be supportive, but the choices you have to make, and you have to live with the burdens. I can't live those burdens for you. And that's why make sensible choices. See a doctor. And I've realized that when kids don't tell their parents, I have a lot of patients whose daughters come and visit me. Obviously, because they are also young girls who are 20, 22, they're adults. I have to confidence. Going to tell them what the daughters have been up to, but the mothers also understand that at least they are in a safe space.
Yes.
So first thing is that you please recognize your safe spaces, and your parents, whatever, they may not approve or they may disapprove of what you're doing, or you don't get a damn whether they approve or not. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is that your parents have nurtured you and they want you safe. Okay? And that definitely is your responsibility. That you owe yourself and you owe your parents. And that is one reason why, if you are in trouble, see a right doctor, or rather see a doctor before you are in trouble, so that you make the correct choices. That's the only thing I would like to finish off with.
Thank you so much, Doctor. That was an amazing conversation with you. Let me conclude this talk while you are still with us, so that in case I miss out on something, I would maybe ask you again to add on to that. But reaching out to our young guns there, you're excited, you're curious, you're also very, very enthusiastic, about life. But don't go for over-the-counter pills. Like doctor said, your friends and your family will not always know what's the best for you. Only a professional can guide you there. And if you're feeling the stress, walk into the clinic of a professional. Let them know what you're going through. Let them assist you with whatever it is that is, your concern of life at that point in time, that is not letting you smile, because smiling is important. Doctor, you would want to add something to that?
No, I think I'm good. I think you summed it up perfectly.
So,
and
smile.
It's been a pleasure being here. And I would like to be here again so that we can take over more questions that people may have. It's been a lovely Sunday evening to have chai with you, Namita, and I hope to do that again soon.
Same here, ma'am. Same here. Thank you so much for being with us in these COVID times. This is the least that we can do for the people who are feeling confused out there. Oh, that brings me to a very important question, and I was just about to miss out on that. I wanted to ask you, how is pregnancy complicating people's life during COVID?
Again, I think the anxieties are increasing. Of course, we are also doing a lot of video calls, video consultations. We are, so we are getting up. It's a new thing, but we are all dealing with it well. We are available for our patients 24/7, so that's not a problem. And we are admitting our patients after doing the COVID test. So little things are being done. Patients are being more careful at home. The basic, see, with COVID, it's just standard. Avoid unnecessary moving out of the house, wear masks, hand hygiene is important, maintain social distancing, full stop. That's all you have to do. And as long as you do that, you are safe, your doctors are safe, to keep your other friends safe. It's as simple as that.
Thank you, doctor. And if I may have the liberty to add that, and if in case you're going through one such problem, doctor is available to you at LaFame, so please visit her. And also, don't forget to smile away. And if you can't, contact us. That Humanizing Life will help you smile long and wide. Thank you, doctor. Thank you so much. See you again.
Thank you, darling. Thank you.